Ah, so much beautiful fabric and so little time. What can I make out of this? Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and this is my weekly vlog number 92 for November the 5th, 2018. And I hope everybody is starting off this week well. This is going to be a little bit up in the air type of week for me. I've got a lot of things on, but right off the bat, I'm waiting for a phone call, which could come while I'm videotaping this. Videotaping, again, old terms, while I'm recording this vlog. The call that's telling me where they're placing my mother this week for a nursing home. Yes, we got a call on Friday from her doctor telling us that they would be placing her in a nursing home this coming week, and that I should expect a call, I guess, from the CCAC, which is the organization that looks after all of this kind of stuff. That's all I know. So I don't know what the name of the nursing home is. I'm assuming it's probably going to be the one that's very near the hospital that she's in right now, because we did put that one on her list and it had the shortest waiting time. Not the most ideal one. It's an old nursing home. However, I've heard really good things about the staff, and Walter and I went and visited it, went over to take a look at it a couple of months ago, and we were kind of impressed by the activity among the residents there. They were not sitting around drooling. They seemed to be involved in activities, and the staff there seemed to be very pleasant, addressed all of the residents by their first name. Generally speaking, the residents looked happy. So although it's an older nursing home style and the whole bit, if the care there is good and if people are happy, then you can overlook the need for some refurbishing. So we'll see. There's going to be a huge learning curve here for both my mother and for us as well. It's like starting all over again, but hopefully her experience in the hospital has gotten her sort of used to what institutional living might be like. And to be honest, I'll be much happier when she does get into a home, because I know she's being taken care of properly, and I can't keep up this pace anymore. I'm sorry, I just can't. I'm going over to visit her, as I mentioned yesterday on Stephen and Walter Live, 3 times a week. It's a 25-minute drive from my house to the hospital one way. You go over, you visit for a while, I pick her up things, I take those over, whatnot, come back, the day's done. It just eats a big hole into your day. Now, I hope that doesn't sound selfish. I mean, I've got a lot of things going on, but I have put my life pretty much on hold this last little while my mother's been in the hospital. And if I'm really honest about the whole thing, my life's been on kind of on a holding pattern for the last 6 years, which coincides with how many years I've been retired, because all of this with my mother and my father before that started almost pretty much on the day that I retired. And that's not what retirement's supposed to be. Yes, we've had a few breaks in there. I mean, we have gone to Australia a couple of times and that kind of thing. But lately, as you know, with the situation what my mother is in, we really can't do any of that at the moment. But I'm telling you, once I know she's established somewhere that I don't have to worry so much about her, that the things that she needs are pretty much taken care of, then we are going away for a little while. Okay? I don't know where, don't know when, but yeah, we both need to get away, because we both have the travel bug, as you well know. It's one of our hobbies, and this has been killing us right now, this time of the year especially. We're getting close now into people thinking about the Christmas season, and I don't enjoy Christmas, bah humbug, and I guess I'm going to be stuck here for Christmas this year. I mean, if my mother's in a nursing home, it's going to be her first experience, spending Christmas in a foreign environment. So, you know, got to be kind of here for that, to ease the transition and the whole bit. But generally speaking, I've often said when Christmas comes around, I don't want to be here. I want to be someplace warmer. And not necessarily because it's warmer, it's just because it's not here. I don't know if any of that makes any sense to any of you out there, but you know, that's just the way life's been lately. And as I said, I'm tired and this is really eating into me. But anyways, let's move on. What a way to start off the vlog. That's kind of negative. What's positive about all of this is that finally, after 4.5 months in the hospital, she's being placed. So that's the good side of all of this. Okay, so what have I been working on? So coming up this Saturday, I have my embroidery class. I actually have 2 embroidery classes. Because of a scheduling problem, they had to put the last class in the embroidery class number 1 to Saturday morning this coming week, and then I start embroidery class session number 2 in the afternoon. So I'm pretty much living at the sewing store all day on Saturday. But I have been enjoying that, and that's great. And I'm starting a new class this week as well on Thursday, doing something called a modern quilt. And so I have my fabric for that, and I have it all pre-cut. I did all the cutting. There was a lot of cutting for this quilt, so I'm ready for Thursday, so we'll see what that brings. Coffee. So, you know, I've been working on some Christmas things for my sister, and so I started working on her napkins, and I found this material. I think I showed it to you before. Well, here's a napkin that is finished. That's the back side. It has a rolled hem. I did that in the serger, and I decided to do a little embroidery. Well, here's where things went terribly wrong. Now, first glance, it looks pretty good, doesn't it? But one of these things does not belong, and that's this one up here in the top. I'll put it in a little closer. Maybe you can see. Notice the lighter color that's on top of the red. That should have been all the way around. If you look at this one, it outlines the poinsettia. Well, this didn't. Why? So I had a major jam. My bobbin was pulled up out of the case, and there was a giant thread nest there as well. And so I had to remove the hoop from the machine, get that all cleaned up. I put it back on, and in the process of doing that, I must have somehow put the hoop out of alignment. Now, I'm not sure what I did, because I have pulled the hoop off midstream before and no problem. But maybe because of how bad this tangle was, because it really pulled on the needle and everything, I stopped the machine, emergency stop, the whole bit. It must have put the whole needle mechanism out of alignment. It didn't break it or anything like that. It just put it out of alignment, and I didn't realize that until it started to stitch it, and then I went, crap. Now, there's another reason why I've said crap, okay? These designs take a while to do. I'm making her 4 napkins, okay? I can't get any more of this particular metallic style fabric, and I only had enough to make 4 napkins. So, on the weekend, I was at a quilt show, and I was looking around at some of the vendors, and one of the vendors had some pretty Christmas fabric there. It wasn't this fabric. So I decided I would buy that. I already had some other Christmas fabric. I bought enough to make 8 napkins, but they were for us. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to retry this embroidery thing. These napkins that aren't absolutely perfect, or this one, if I have another one out of this is not perfect, those I will use. Okay, I don't know if I'm having people here on Christmas Day or not. I could have as many as 10, 12 people, something like that. So I will use them. Now the thing is, if you don't point it out to somebody, they probably wouldn't really notice it. But I can't give that kind of thing as a gift, because it's not perfect. You don't give things that aren't perfect as gifts. So with any luck, one of my projects this week, if I get to it, is to work some more on these napkins and see what I can come up with. I've got enough fabric now that one way or another, I'm going to come up with at least 4 napkins that are okay, that I can give to her. And then I think I've got that all wrapped up. and I can move on to other projects. Okay, what else? Oh, okay, other projects, speaking of that, you know, I was telling you last week, oh, just before I talk about that, one thing I forgot. In our last class of the embroidery class, we are doing t-shirts. We're embroidering on t-shirts. Now, this doesn't really turn my crank, mainly because I don't wear t-shirts at all. There's a reason for that. I'm heavy enough now as it is. A t-shirt just accentuates that kind of thing. And I've been putting on the pounds lately anyways, as an aside. A lot of it has to do with stress. Oh, why? I don't know. But anyways, it's good to know how to do this, though, you know, if you want to do a gift or something like that. So we were to come with a design that we want to put on a t-shirt and bring the t-shirt. So I've got a couple of t-shirts and they're ready to go. And I was looking for designs, and, you know, I didn't want to put anything on it that's too feminine looking, or, you know, not that that really bothers me about it, but I just figured I should do something a little bit more masculine. So I thought, why not do something patriotic as well? So I found two designs that I may use. I have two t-shirts, so I may do two t-shirts if there's time. But I have this one that says Canada, the maple leaves, that I kind of like. And so that would look, you know, nice right here on t-shirt. It's kind of on the large size, but that's okay. I think, you know, that's all right. And then I found this one of Canada geese, which are not actually our national bird. Just because I say Canada goose doesn't mean they're our national bird. The loon is our national bird. But I thought this was kind of a nice pattern too. And both of them are fairly simple enough that they'll stitch up fairly quickly. So that's in the embroidery class. And when I get those done, and hopefully they work out okay, I'll show them to you then, probably next week. Okay, so the thing though I was going to talk about is the quilt that I am designing for next year's quilt show from my guild. And there is judging and things like that. I'm not sure what the level of judging is at something like this. I went to a quilt show on the weekend by a neighboring guild, and I mentioned that in Stephen and Walter Live, so I'm not going to belabor the point. But and I do have some shots a little near the end of the vlog today. You'll see a little video clip of the quilts that I saw. But when I was looking around there and trying to figure out, you know, how they would do the judging, I don't think it's as on the same level as something like the big quilt show they have every year down in Houston, the International Quilt Show or whatever they call it, that kind of thing. But I'm not going into this really with the idea that I'm being competitive. I'm going in it because it's incentive, it's a challenge. I want to see if I can actually have a quilt hanging in a quilt show. So I'm designing this. They gave us the material. And this, I've done several designs, and I finally settled on this design. I did an electric quilt. Get the glare off it. Now the colors are close, but not exactly the colors. But the principal fabric that you have to have as primary is this one going through the middle and up here, and all these little branches. And I found a complementary fabric that's darker with butterflies on it that'll go in those triangles as well. This is not a big quilt. I think this quilt comes out to, is it on here? 40 by 40. It's a square. So basically it's a throw. Or it could be a wall hanging. Either way. But their largest dimensions, I think, are 51 by 60. So it fits into those dimensions for this challenge. I think it's going to look very dramatic when it's actually done in the fabric. As I said, these are not the exact colors. So I experimented while I was doing this with one of the blocks. Now this isn't exactly, because I'm not using purple. This block will have sort of a goldy yellow in those spaces where the purple is now. And if you notice, I did some embroidery. And I'm going to do that with in the center block, or a center square of every block, I'm going to put a little butterfly. And I'm not, you're going to say, well, shouldn't your butterfly point towards the points like this way a little bit more? Well, yeah, I was going to do that. And I thought I had done that when I put it in, but it didn't really work. But then I got thinking about it. It doesn't matter on this one anyways. This is just a play around piece kind of a thing. But what I'm thinking is I'm going to have one of these in the center of each block, and I'm going to put them in random ways so that, you know, butterflies don't all fly in a flock, kind of a deal. But I just think it's a subtle element because I'm using a thread, and it'll be the same color in all of them, pretty much, I think, even in the darker ones. But I think that just adds a little something to the overall quilt. Now, this quilt's going to take some time, but I have a year because I want to make sure it's not a hard block to make, but there are some points that have to be matched up on there, and that can be tricky. But I really want to make this as close to perfect as I possibly can because it's going into a show. At least that's what I'm planning for. So stay tuned for that. It's a year-long project. Okay. Yeah, so that's what I've been up to this week. Now, what about YouTube channel of the week? Okay, this was recommended by somebody on Stephen and Walter Live, or no, I think it was somebody sent me an email and also listed this. I should write these things down because I can't remember who talked about Ramon at Home, and that's the name of this particular guy. Now he's I think he's I don't know if he does it professionally, but he is a designer of sorts. He's into DIY home decor. Right now he's doing a whole series on Christmas. Now, to be honest, I don't find his videos that thrilling, but they give you ideas out of it all. So here's my review. This week's YouTube channel is called Ramon at Home. And Ramon is a DIYer, and he's a home decor person. And he shows you how to make a lot of really cool things for your house. And a lot of the times, what makes him a little different from some of the other DIYers is that he's going to the dollar store to get a lot of his supplies, and he creates very nice looking ornaments, home decor items, things like that. Right now, he's doing the 25 days of Christmas, and I guess he's going to have a different DIY decorating idea for Christmas. So if you're interested in home decor, if you're interested about Christmas decorations right now, although he does things all year round, and you're looking for ideas that are inexpensive to create, then check out Ramon at Home. And this YouTube channel was recommended by one of my subscribers. And if you have a special YouTube channel that you go to often and think would be a great idea for me to review, then just send me the link to that YouTube channel and I'll check it out. Okay, so I've listed in the show notes below the URL for Ramon at Home. Also, Stephen and Walter's connection is listed there as well. And this week's book of the week is there too. We'll come to that very shortly. So that brings me to what's pissing me off this week. Nothing. I am happy to say nothing is pissing me off this week. Can't think of a thing. The only thing is, yeah, I say there's nothing. I'm anticipating that I will be pissed off later in the week. That's probably not a very optimistic point of view to have about life. You know, I am a pragmatist. You know what a pragmatist is? Somebody that always sees everything as a problem that has to be solved and moves on to the next problem once the problem is solved. I tend to be a little bit like that. I'm anticipating that there will be things or people that will piss me off because with this whole thing with my mother going into a nursing home. There's so much potential there to be pissed off that I don't want to think about it. Again, kind of negative thoughts here. So let's just be happy right now that there's nothing really pissing me off at this moment in time. All is well. Okay, moving on. Product reviews. Okay, I got, and I absolutely love it, a paper cutter for fabric. That's what I call it. It's made by Fiskars, and everybody knows who Fiskars are. Fiskars is a company that makes scissors and paper cutters and that kind of stuff. Well, they also have a fabric cutter, and it basically looks like, and I forgot to bring it out, and I'm not getting off my stool to get it right now, but you get the idea. It looks like a paper cutter. It's a long ruler, 6 inches wide, 24 inches long, It's marked up like a quilting ruler. Well, it is a quilting ruler, but mounted on the edge of the quilting ruler is a rail with a rotary cutter attached to it. And it's very much like those rotary cutter paper trimmers where, you know, you just slide it across and that slices it. Well, this is exactly what this does with fabric, and it's beautiful. It cuts like butter. You can replace the blades just like you can on any rotary cutter, so you never have to worry about that. And you can keep your cuts straight. It's great. I love it. In fact, I love it so much I'm thinking about, there's another one that's a 12 by 12, which I think would be very handy to have too. And I'm thinking that maybe after the vlog today, I'll get onto Amazon and I'll order that as well. They're great. They really are. Of course, if you're not into quilting or into cutting fabric, this means nothing to you. So just trust me, it's great. So I got that. I bought some more fabric. You've seen that before. Oh, but I also bought something that's called a wool ironing mat. It is a slab of basically compressed wool. And I have seen these on YouTube videos. My store, the Ultimate Sewing Store, got them in last week and I picked one up. They're not a cheap little thing. I think the pad I got is a 12 by 17, something like that. It was about $70 some. But it is so nice to iron on. It is great for quilting, especially because you only need to really press one side of your fabric or your seams on this because of the way the heat is transmitted through it. It sort of presses both sides at the same time. It's hard to describe it, especially if you're somebody that's not into ironing or that kind of thing, to tell you how great this is. But it is really good. And so I feel that it was worth what I paid for it. You know, it'd be nice if it was a little cheaper, but it is wool. So very nice, very good. Okay, I'm happy about that. Let's see. Anything else? I got some new stencils from Mike Deacon. You know, I have more stencils than enough. In fact, there was another stencil that I usually order them. He usually comes out with these 2 stencils every month, and I order both stencils. For some reason, I thought I had ordered the second stencil, but I checked my order information on his website, and no, I hadn't. So I have now. And in fact, I just had an email this morning that says it's been shipped, so I'll probably get that. Well, over here right now, we're going through rotating mail strikes. So who knows when I'm going to get it. But anyways, it'll come. Now, do I need more stencils? No, I don't. I've got way too many stencils. I have stencils in the packages that I've never taken out of the packages. It's force of habit. I usually have a standing order at my scrapbook store for any new stencils that Tim Holtz comes out with. I have them all. It's become sort of a collection. I don't use them all. And it's the same with the Mike Deacon ones. They've become a collection. I think I have all the stencils he's ever created. But with Mike, I look at it in a little different way. I love his stencils. They're good quality. They're reasonably priced, even the shipping, and they're coming from the UK. But I also feel that I am supporting him. This is part of his business. And I am what he calls an angel because I have donated money to him. It wasn't very much. And that was some time ago. So this is my way of, you know, kind of supporting what he does as well by buying the stencils. But how many more do I need? You know, really. I've got to think of another way to use my stencils. Possibly I could use them to design fabric with. I don't know, but we'll see. Anyways, moving on. Book reviews. What's this week's book? Bookbinding Techniques and Projects. This is a fairly extensive book. If you want to get into book binding, okay, now what's book binding? We've talked about that before. Ooh, look, book presses. I mentioned this on Stephen and Walter Live, that I had bought, several years ago, the equipment to build a book press, and Walter was going to build that for me and just never got around to it. And yeah, things like that happen. But anyways, it shows you all the equipment you need to do professional book binding. I was all into bookbinding a few years ago, and I made several hard-covered books, and I probably should go back and revisit it because I liked doing it. At one point in time, I was really thinking about actually taking some serious professional courses in bookbinding. But the only places I can do that, there's only one place in Toronto. You'd have to drive into the city and it'd be at night, and I'm not driving into Toronto at night, and I'm not driving into Toronto by myself. Yes, I'm getting old. I don't want to be that adventuresome. But anyways, so I haven't done it in a while. But this book, if you're interested, is excellent. You know, it's very clear. And it's for people who are just starting out in bookbinding. And it's interesting to read too if you're interested in the history kind of a bookbinding, because I think there's a section about that, and it talks about, you know, older techniques as compared to modern techniques as well. This book is by, who wrote this? Josep Cambras, I think that's how you say their name. I have a link for it from Amazon.ca down below, but price-wise, I paid $32.50 for this book at the time. However, on Amazon right now, Amazon.ca, they are listing this book at $21.01. But they don't have any listed under used. But that's a considerable difference than what I paid for it originally. So, you know, if you're interested, it's not bad. And it's a good quality book as well. So really, it is worth 20 bucks, I would say. Okay. So that was the book of the week. Moving right on, let's talk about inspiration lists or tips and things like that. Be inspired by your garbage. Now, what do I mean by that? You know, you can be very creative with junk mail, packaging, that kind of thing. Don't throw them out. Next time you open up a package, look at the graphic elements of the packaging. Look at the color. Look at the text and the style of text. Look at the imagery that's on it, all that kind of stuff, because you know there's a lot of very attractive and very artistic packaging out there. The same with junk mail. I mean, I know the first thing we see is a flyer from a real estate agent, in the garbage it goes. But check it out. They purposely have professionals design these pieces of junk mail to attract our eye. So look at it more from the standpoint of as an artist, as a crafter, and see the potential. Now, off camera over to the side here, I have a big basket full of junk mail and packaging and things like that, just waiting for me to do something with it. And I will, eventually. But it's just stuff I found that looked interesting. I have used garbage before to make junk journals, and I have videos about junk journals, and there's tons of videos about using junk mail to make junk journals and things like that on YouTube. I have used my junk mail and garbage to make tags. I've used it for collage work on, you know, canvases or even in my art journal. So there's a lot of stuff out there. And there's a couple of good things about this as well. Obviously, you're recycling garbage. You're turning something that was going to be thrown away into a work of art. And that's good. The other thing about it, too, is it's free. It's cheap. So, you know, you don't necessarily need to have every one of Tim Holtz's embellishments out there, or fancy pads of scrapbook paper that you pay $30, $40 for from like Graphic 45 or something like that. You can make beautiful things from garbage. Freebies. So you might want to consider that. I find it very inspiring. And as such, if we move into what's in my drawers this week, it's garbage. So this next little segment is all about how I've used garbage to create art. So here it comes. So what's in my drawers this week? Garbage. Literally, garbage. I collect garbage. Well, not complete garbage. Like I don't collect stuff that you can compost or old rotting vegetables or that kind of thing. But I collect packaging and junk mail. And this is my little basket of stuff, and I just throw it in there. Or I collect, you know, unique kinds of packaging. This was off a 3-pack of salsa, I think, from Costco. And then you can see packaging from various things. A lot of the packaging comes from art supplies that I buy. I even keep some things that really didn't work out, and I throw them in here too. I keep junk mail, brochures for, you know, restaurants and things like that. Whatever. If it catches my eye, I throw it in here. And then you're going to wonder, there's some more things that didn't turn out, and you're going to wonder, what is it that I do with these? Well, there's a lot of things you can do with these. So let me get these out of our way. And again, you can see that there's quite a selection here of junk. I won't be able to use all of this. Eventually, it will have to go into recycling, that kind of thing. But for now, I hang on to it because it inspires me. And I'll show you what it inspires me to create. So everybody's heard of junk journals. And I've done videos about making junk journals, and you can just do a search on my YouTube channel and you will find these. But here's one example. There's an old piece of jelly print paper that I put in here, a map, some old scrapbook paper. These are some pages I actually did in the junk journal. It's just whatever's laying around, the pages out of a magazine, junk mail, things like that. And it becomes an album. And it's a very simple binding technique. Just fold things in half, make it like a traveler's notebook. And inside here, I don't worry about what I'm putting in. I have leftover pictures from scrapbooking. I've got labels and tags and other ephemera, cutouts. I just put whatever is laying around in here. That creates a junk journal. And actually, it's very therapeutic because unlike my regular scrapbook or something like that, I don't really care what it's going to look like. I just throw pieces together. In fact, I didn't even glue some of these down. I stapled them. So, and at the end of the process, you've used up some of your leftover bits and pieces. You've used up some of your garbage, some of your junk, and created a kind of a cool album. And here's one that I haven't done anything in, but you can see here's how I use some of the junk mail. Flyers. And you see sometimes you get ones that have these little cutouts. I didn't cut that out. It came that way. Some more jelly print paper. Here's a booklet within a booklet. This little thing here that had coupons for McDonald's came as a booklet. I just dropped it right in. And so you can see that's one way to use up your junk mail. If you gesso over top of some of these pages, you can make it into an art journal without a problem. I like to leave some of the packaging or some of the junk mail actually here without coloring over it because it's got a lot of colors in it already. So, you know, why not use that? So that's one thing. Another thing you can do is do really fancy tags. Now these are large tags. I think they're Delusions tags. And it's maybe not so easy to see this at first glance, but if you really study it, you can see packaging in the background. And here's one of those things that holds salsa, which I just aged and added things around too. Again, it makes a good basis for a tag. I didn't even necessarily have to use a large tag for this. I could have made the tag right from the packaging, and you can do that very easily. I mean, after all, the packaging is like cardboard. It's very stiff. Just make a template or put it through your die cutting machine and make tags out of that and use that as a basis for building up layers. On this one, I did a similar thing. It's just garbage. These were leftover cutouts that I had from other sources, some old doilies, just junk laying around. And if you look at this closely, you see this little gold tag up here? That came off of some clothing. You know how they sometimes clip parts of the clothing together to keep it nice in the package? That's all that was, with a little gold paint on it. Same with these little clips on the side. So you see, you can make things out of your junk. You can even use your junk on backgrounds for mixed media pieces already that you're working on. So, you know, add a few pieces of junk mail, add some labeling.
look at the words that are on the junk mail. Look at the words that are on the packaging. Oftentimes they use special fonts, nice colors. Cut that out, use it as a headline, use it as part of your journaling in your mixed media journal, or even on a scrapbook page, or even on a card. So there's images on a lot of these things too that could be used as an element to a card or a journal page. So really, don't throw it out. Take a look at it. It's got a lot of creative potential. So this week I've kind of combined my inspiration tip along with what's in my drawers. And what's in my drawers is garbage, and I'll keep adding to my garbage pile until I can't handle it anymore.
So I hope that gave you maybe some inspiration to, rifle through your recycling bin and make something nice today. Okay, events of the past week. I already talked about my mom, so we'll move on. We went and saw, I call it the new school. It's not that new now. It's 4 years old. They've started their 4th year. It's just north of me. But this school has a little bit of a connection to me because it was the kids that are going to this school now. Originally, these kids, well, not these same kids, but they went to the school that I retired from because it was the closest school to where they lived. And then they built a high school in their area, and they've got all of that. And when they opened that school, they also took a lot of the staff I worked with at my old school to that school. So, but I've never been in it. Now, architecturally, it was designed by the same architectural team that built the school I was in, so it looks very much the same. But the reason I was up there to check it out was, as you know, I donated my very first sewing machine, my brother one that I got from Costco, to the fashion arts department of this high school. A friend of mine is the head of that department. So basically, she's got some students that are needy. They can't afford their own sewing machine, and they take the course, and she lends the sewing, she's got a couple of sewing machines that she lends out that are like lighter and more portable kind of a thing, so they can take them home and work on their projects at home with them. And so when I told her I had this sewing machine, she thought that was great because she really, right now, she has 3 students in need in her class, and she only has 2 machines that she can lend out, but now she's got a 3rd one. So that's great. I'm glad that it's going to be used for something like this. But anyways, it gave me an excuse to go up, drop it off, and take a little tour of the school. And so my friend took us around, and oh my goodness, how education in the last 6 years has changed. In fact, it almost makes me want to go back to work. Not that much, but I couldn't believe how the technology has changed. It's my ideal setup. I've always been into high tech. I was pioneering the use of computers and things back in the early 80s when I started to teach. Yeah, and I'll admit it, I was a little ahead of my time with the technology and different things I did with it over the years while I was teaching. But my greatest dream was that every kid in my classes would have their own laptop. Well, the dream has come true. Every kid at this new school has a laptop. They're actually, I think, Chromebooks, which are put out by Google. So, you know, they don't have a lot of memory in them because they're all cloud-based. So there's Wi-Fi everywhere in the schools these days, and so the kids just hook into that and they can go to Google Docs and all the other programs that Google has. And that's all essentially free. Teachers now don't bother with having students hand in their assignments, their essays in a physical form. They're electronically transmitted. I was having the students do that before I retired, and I would mark them electronically as well. And I had actually a program that I wrote that helped to identify the mistakes in their papers and put in why it was a mistake, how to correct it, and put it right into the body of their paper. And we did things with that afterwards so that they could, you know, analyze their problems, their weaknesses, and build on those. So now they all have access to this technology. Not only that, they have areas set up in the school that are little like for study groups, but what they are is a table with some little stools and things. The kids can all plug in their laptops at these tables, and there's a big flat screen attached to this pod kind of a thing, and I guess they can share what's on their screen with all the other group that are sitting there too it'll transfer over to this larger screen. And I'm just thinking, oh wow, that's just, you know, fantastic. That is not something I ever thought of. So yeah, beautiful school. They come from, it's an area too where the kids are pretty good bunch of kids, really, because they're kids that I taught that came from that area too before. And that was the school I finished out my career in. Was a great school. I loved it. It was the best way to retire, you know, I have great memories of that school. So I guess that's why I felt a little nostalgic and, you know, kind of thinking, oh geez, I should have, you know, go back to teaching. No, it looks great, it's wonderful, but no, I did my time. I enjoyed it when I did it. Moving on in my life. So anyways, it was nice to see the new school. So I had the art journaling class, my monthly class that I do, and that was yesterday. And we were doing paste papers and things like that, and everybody seemed to have a good time. You know, this group of ladies that I work with, it's a great group because they are open to any kind of new ideas and trying things. And in fact, we were done a little bit earlier yesterday than we usually are. Usually the class runs from about 1:30 to about 4 o'clock. Come around 3:30, people are starting to pack up, you know. Yesterday, we were getting packed up before 3. I thought it was going to take a lot longer to do what we were doing, but that's the kind of group they are. They get right into it and get really involved, and away they go. So anyways, another thing this group does, one of the people in the group, this group's very social in many ways as well, which is great, but they like to make, one of the ladies organized it so that they, if they wish to, they can make ATC cards and they trade them. And so every month they come with their ATC cards and it's on a theme, and it's led by this one lady taking the course, Joanne, and they make their ATCs. I don't make ATCs. I probably should. Nothing against them or anything like that. It's never really grabbed my goat kind of a thing to do it. But these ladies come up with some beautiful things, and they give me some of them too as well, and which is nice. I have a wall. I should do a little video to show you my little wall of ATC cards that have come mostly from this group. But I got quite a few yesterday. I'll just show them to you. This one was from Gina, and they sign the back of them and they number them and they put a date on them. So that's Gina. This is Darla. Very pretty. The theme, I think, was collage. This is very nice too. This is Joanne. This is the lady who got us all going on these ATCs. And you can see she's got them in these little pockets. It's just really cool. This is kind of unique. This is yeah, okay, I was just reading here. She's got her, I can't show you that. It's in a little envelope. This is Marina. Get her name right. Sorry, Marina, if you're watching this. And, oh, she's got a couple of things here. Oh, sorry, I just dropped one on the floor. Now I have to get off my stool. I'll be back. I'm just going downstairs for a minute. And back up. Yeah, I have an elevator right here. Yeah, right. If you believe that, I've got swampland in Florida to sell you. So back on my perch. Okay. Yeah. I'm there. So she's got two things. She's got her artist's trading card. And she has, I guess these are what they call artists' ATC coins. They're very popular right now, but both kind of a Halloween theme. And she made this little envelope as well, which is really quite cool. I'm trying to put this so that you can't see her. She's got her address and everything on the outside of the envelope, and I don't think that's probably a good idea to show you, so I'll put that back away in a minute. Here's another one, and this one was made by Caroline. Very nice. And this one's very shiny. This is Kristen's. Try to keep the glare off it. Very nice, very wintry, Christmassy looking. So yeah, they're very beautiful. They are mini art, and they will go on my wall with all the other ones. And I've got quite a few of those. So maybe I'll do a little video clip of that and put it into one of my vlogs in the future so you can see that. Okay, what else? So I got a flu shot last week. And that's one thing that pisses me off, is that people who don't get flu shots. But I've talked about that before, so I'm not going over it again. But anyways, both Walter and I got our flu shots. My mother supposedly is getting one in the hospital. I get one every year. I swear by them. And I don't care what other people say about flu shots. I think you're being idiots if you don't get one. If you have the ability to be able to get one, and here in this province we get them free, then get one. You're protecting yourself and you're protecting the people around you. We did do RMG Friday at the art gallery, but we said specifically to the new person who's organizing a lot of this that we weren't being gallery attendants anymore. That's just boring, don't like it, and it's kind of useless. They have security guards. They don't need us for that. So I said, if you have something specific for us to do that night, then we'll be there. Otherwise, we won't be there. And he asked if we could man a table that's sort of advertising the big fundraising event of the year that happens every year at the art gallery. And so we said, sure. And we did. And that was fine. I don't know what's going to come of these. To be honest, we're not into it as much anymore. It was different when I could give tours and things like that, but now that I'm not on the education team because they dissolved the education team, I don't know anything about the art that's in there, because we used to have talks and used to be given stuff so we could use this when we went and took the tours with the kids and things like that. So I don't know anything there. So we are working at RMG Exposed in the middle of this month, which was the big event that we were sort of telling people about the other night. But after that, unless they call us specifically to do something, I don't think we're going to be there. I think we're just going to slowly drift away, which I find I don't want to do that, but I also want to feel that when I'm volunteering for something, I'm doing something of value for the art gallery. And volunteer work should be enriching for the individual who's the volunteer as well. It should be something that you look forward to doing and you want to do, because a volunteer who's grumbly, negative, that kind of thing, that's really not a good thing for anybody. So we'll see what happens after with all of this. And of course there was the quilt show, and I talked yesterday about that on Stephen and Walter Live. I had nothing to compare it to because I'd never been to one before. I found it a little underwhelming. The quilts were lovely that were there, but nothing except for one really stood out for me. I was expecting to see, you know, a nice variety of both traditional quilting and more modern quilting and art quilts, and it tended to lean more to the more traditional kind of thing. There were elements that were there that were, you know, a little bit more avant-garde, I guess. I guess I was just expecting maybe too much, but I'd never been to one before. Now, one of my friends who was also at that made a comment and said, yeah, she has seen better, she said. I mean, it was still nice, okay? And I know what the work is that goes into these quilts and things like that, and I wish I could be as good as that as well. So I'm not criticizing the quilters. I guess I just had higher expectations. So, but nevertheless, I'm glad I went. There were some vendors there, so I bought some fabric and whatnot. We did buy a quilt rack, and I have a shot of that in a second, you're going to see. But I'm really happy with that because there was this elderly gentleman there, and this must be his hobby. He makes things out of wood, and he had all these quilt racks, and he had them in oak and mahogany and cherry wood and things like that. I bought an oak one, and you couldn't beat the price. $160 for a quilt rack, and this is a large quilt rack. I had priced quilt racks like this on the internet, and they were like, a cheap one was $300, and they went up from there like $400 or $500 for them. So when I saw this at this price, I thought I can't turn it down. So I did get it. I got it home. Then I had to figure out where I was going to put it, but I managed to figure it out. I had to do a little bit of rearranging of some furniture in my rec room, but it works. And so I'm going to put in a little video clip right here of the quilt shows, just showing you some of the quilts that were there. Not all of them, but some of them. And the very first quilt, I think, is one of that is a portrait of Elton John. Now, I know the lady who made this, and she is very, very good at what she does. And I am sure that that quilt must have taken an award before the quilt show was over. But she does thread painting with it. She actually, the portrait she did the quilt from, she wrote to or got in contact with the actual photographer and said what she wanted to do and got permission. So she hasn't violated any copyrights or anything like that. And what she'd like to do ultimately is to give it to Elton John, except she's not sure how to get a hold of him. And also because he's not really he doesn't really have much of a presence in social media, probably because, you know, people will be bugging him all the time. And, you know, she doesn't want to be seen as just one of the millions of fans of Elton John kind of a thing. So she says if she can't get a hold of him or whatever, or if he doesn't want the quilt, she would donate it to his AIDS Foundation, kind of a thing. So anyways, it is gorgeous, so watch for that. It's at the very first of this video clip, and at the very end of the video clip, I give you a shot of my new quilt rack with my quilts on it. Okay, so what's coming up? Well, I already talked about the modern quilt class on Thursday and my embroidery classes on the weekend. On the weekend as well, though, we are going off to visit my first cousin. Now, I have not seen my first cousin since 2005. He is considerably younger than me, like 21 years younger than me. He's my uncle's only son, and the last time I saw him was at my uncle's funeral. My uncle died prematurely early, at about the age of 59, heart attack. And so anyways, that was the last time I saw my cousin. And the reason I'm going down to visit my cousin is he used to belong to the Masonic Temple. My father and my grandfather, which is also my cousin's grandfather, were members of the Masonic Temple as well. Although for my father, he hadn't gone to a meeting in years and years and years and years and years. But he always kept up his dues and that kind of thing. Well, when I was cleaning out my mother's apartment, I came across a couple of Masonic aprons. And one was my grandfather's and one was my father's. And I also came across 2 Masonic rings. My grandfather's, my father's. They don't mean anything to me. I was never a Mason, never intended to be a Mason. In fact, when I was much younger, I used to unfairly criticize the Masons as, well, I used to call them the Ku Klux Klan. They're really not, and I've learned a lot more about the Masonic Temple over the years now, and they do a lot of good things in the world as well. So really, ignorance is what that was all about, calling them Ku Klux Klan, that kind of thing. Anyways, I never joined, never had any desire to, so really these things don't mean anything to me. but I can't see throwing them away or anything like that. When I found out, my mother thought my cousin had been involved. I contacted the lodge that he was a member of, which was also the same lodge that my father and my grandfather belonged to, and asked if they had an address or an email for my cousin. So they contacted my cousin, told him what I was doing, and he contacted me, and we had a nice conversation through email. And so on Sunday, Walter and I and my sister and possibly my brother-in-law, if he's not working, we're going down to this town, which is basically the town that I was born in, my sister was born in, that whole thing, where my grandparents lived. My father grew up, my mother grew up there, which is about an hour and a half away from us, east of us, and to visit him and give him this stuff. He said yes, he would love to have it. So that would be great, and it'll be really nice to catch up with my cousin, because I don't have a lot of relatives. My family is relatively small, and yes, that's my clock, of course it is. And so, you know, it's nice to touch base again and, you know, just find out how life is going for that side of the family. So that's what we're doing. So I'm kind of excited about that. All right. What else? Oh, got Quilt Guild this Tuesday night. So I am taking the Labyrinth. That's the quilt that you have seen many times. That's on my bed, the queen size one that I did. I'm very proud of that quilt. That's my favorite quilt to date that I've made. It's got its flaws, but I'm going to do the show and tell, and I'm going to show that quilt as well. And I'm kind of excited about showing it because I am proud of it. There's no two ways about it. I am proud of it. And, you know, at the Guild, they're kind. So no one's going to go up to and say, oh, you made that mistake right there. Yeah. Oh, that doesn't mean that they won't see it, but they're not going to be nasty. So I've already, you know, gotten over the fear factor after I showed them that one quilt a month ago, and I got a good response from it. So yeah, it's an ego thing. Okay, I will admit that. It's an ego thing. You like to have other people praise you about your work. And yeah, I'm not humble. Sorry, I'm just not. Okay. So that's the week that was, and I hope all of you have a good week coming up for you. Hope you had a good weekend. Now, just before I go, Stephen and Walter Live, going to be weird. I told you that we're going on Sunday to visit my cousin, and he's an hour and a half away. So Stephen and Walter Live is not going to be on at the usual time this coming Sunday. In fact, it's not going to be on Sunday. We are shooting for 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday. And what's the date on Saturday? That'd be November the 10th. So that's when we're going to do it. So it's going to be party with a Saturday night kind of thing, I guess. That's what we're planning right now. I will put out a video reminder about that. So hopefully that's what's going to happen. So on that note, I hope you have a good week. We'll see you on Stephen Walter Live. We'll see you next week for the vlog, and have a great one. Bye-bye for now.